Fuzzy Belvedere, let's get into the other news of today's podcast, and that comes the way of Screen Rant. Now, granted, this has been out there from multiple websites. Multiple people are talking about it in the community, but I specifically pulled the Screen Rant article. I mean, because again, I like Screen Rant. It was written by Ryan Applegate. It was published 2 days ago, ladies and gentlemen. And the title for Screen Rant's article regarding AVOWED says this: AVOWED has reached 5.9 million players since launch, outperforming one of Xbox's hit first-party titles. Of course, they're talking about Indiana Jones. But you see, sure, that's impressive. It outpaced Indiana Jones. We have not had a further update past the 4 million. But I do want to kind of take a second and walk this back, Fuzzy, because, you know, when you see people writing about this, I've seen a lot of headlines, and I don't really think people are trolling. I really think people are just being like legitimate. And you keep seeing 5.9 million in its first month. And they're right, because it came out in February. But if we're going to be super detailed about the conversation, and I really want to talk about this, it's not the first month. It's technically the first 15 days. And how do I come to that conclusion? Well, simple math, right? It came out on the 18th for everyone who didn't do the 5-day early access, which came out on the 13th. There are only 28 days in February. Again, this is not a revelation, and I'm not a math teacher or a genius in any stretch of the truth. It's simply math, and that's what it is, folks. Fuzzy, it has crossed, and I think this is a really big deal. I really do, because you got to remember this. Unfortunately, we are all excited for a new Obsidian joint, right? That's really what it comes down to. They are one of the best in the business when it comes to Western RPGs. You can't even fight that. But here, unfortunately, there was an art director that said some things that kind of got the community a little bit bent out of shape. You know, there was a lot of the, quote unquote, woke conversation about the characters, and there was none of that on display. The game is brilliant, but I really think there's something to be championed here, Fuzzy, when you consider that in 15-day time, they had nearly 6 million people play this game, and we saw what happened on early access through Steam, how it was #1 in the charts for purchased games, not through Xbox Game Pass, from people actually buying the early access and buying the game. And the game's $89.99, I think it was, for the bundle. Fuzzy, this is great for Xbox. It's great for Obsidian. It's even better for Xbox Game Studios. And I think that you could, and again, I'm just spitballing here, folks. The word of mouth has been fantastic for this game. What happens if we get to June and there are 10 million players? I think this would be I already think it's a record hit for Obsidian and Xbox Game Studios. Let's get your thoughts on the numbers, man.
Sorry about being on mute. First, I think the big thing that we can almost guarantee from this is some sort of sequel or continuation within the Pillars universe. I think that's going to be probably the biggest thing. This is another, IP that Obsidian can, work on with their teams as far as making additional, stories and stuff. We see that with, Outer Worlds. We see that possibly with Fallout, although it may not be New Vegas 2 or anything, but there could be another Fallout story that they tell themselves. And with Grounded, I would have to believe at some point we see a Grounded 2 or maybe a Grounded 2.0 where they do an overhaul or something along those lines, adding features or something to that effect. So Obsidian has been great at making great RPGs or just great games in general. So with that number, especially considering, like you said, by June, it could reach 10 million players. I think that's a great first step in a game that was not previously announced for coming to another platform to do on both PC and Xbox. And I think that's the big thing that they're looking at. And even if every one of those isn't a purchase, that goes to show that the Game Pass subscriptions and probably the growth from games like this is still, sustainable, still able to allow them to push things forward and continue to invest in third parties into the service as well as their first party lineup. So it goes to show that, having a team like Obsidian was probably one of their best studio purchases, although they've acquired so much great talent between Ninja Theory, Obsidian, as well as things like Double Fine and all of Bethesda and Activision and stuff. So that goes to show they're firing on all cylinders. And yeah, there was that noise about the woke stuff and what some of the what one staff member was saying, which I get it. If you're not for whatever he was saying, I understand, but don't hold the whole game or the whole team accountable for that one individual. And if anything, considering how this game being in Game Pass allows you to try it to see if this game fits what you're looking for in an RPG, I think that's the best option out there. So that way a lot of people can, decide for themselves, as opposed to listening to the 7 out of 10 reviews out there. They can see for themselves how they feel about this game, which IGN, I've said it before and I'll continue to say it. They are probably more of a detriment to this industry than a help. But, given that type of number, as far as what AVOWED did within, the first 15 days of it being available, that's pretty good, especially considering there was another big RPG out there with Kingdom Come Deliverance. Considering all the other games that were coming to Game Pass, like there was a lot of people that are probably still playing. Was it the Sniper Elite? What is it called? The Resistance or whatever?
Yes,
there's probably a lot of people still playing that.
I haven't even played it, bro. It's just been not enough freaking time in the day, man.
Yeah, but there's so many games like that, and for it to be in the middle of all those other games, it's great for it to reach that number. It was like a highly anticipated game for a lot of people last year, and when it got pushed to this year, the people still showed up for that game, and they'll probably continue to show up for this game, because as the word comes out or goes out, as far as like Xbox having a lot of, great games to play, and they're available, in Game Pass and things like that, I think even more people will give it a try, or more people will, try to figure out how they can, access it, whether it's through the browser, their TV, their phone, or their PC. This is what, Xbox Everywhere is about. This is what, Game Pass is about. And, Obsidian making another great game. That's what Obsidian and Xbox first party studios is about. So yeah, numbers not surprising, but yeah, I think it's just the tip of the iceberg. Wait until later in the year when they probably, make mention of crossing that 10 million threshold, or the following year crossing the 15 million threshold. There's a lot of games that have been doing that as recent. So good to see it.
You know what? I think what you're going to start to see, look, when Xbox gets into a rhythm, and I think they're already there. Some people will argue with you and say that they're not there yet. I will have to push back on that. But they seem to be in a rhythm where they're just hitting. And it's not just the games, folks. The games are a part of the conversation. I think when you look back, let's just say, okay, we're in March, right? Today's obviously March 3rd. Let's go all the way back to October or November. You have Call of Duty that hits like ridiculous, right? Makes a lot of money on PlayStation. In fact, most of the money came from PlayStation. It was like 64.8% of monies came the way of PlayStation. They are they're the market leader, folks. That face reality. People play Call of Duty, and they didn't move over. Now, some did, sure, and they got some record, numbers for Game Pass. But I'm just saying, when you take a step back and you look at the games, you look at how people are talking about Xbox, you look at the future that has been painted for us, right? You hear that they have a new console that's going to be this mythical box that's going to be a PC. They got a handheld. They're going to GDC. They may show something there. You have you close out the year with stellar reviews for Indiana Jones. Now, granted, only 4 million people played it, which I think is a sin. Honestly, the game is so freaking good. It's almost terrible that it didn't have 8 million players, because it deserves it. It's a really freaking great game. More importantly, it's a great Indiana Jones story. then that's how you close out the year. And you open the year with, of course, the developer direct, right? And they just seem to be going and going. Now, granted, yeah, they had the indie showcase, which IGN, and listen, anyone from Xbox, please take this message to Tina. She can do a much better job. I don't think she owes IGN anything. Yes, they're a big publication, but every time they do something with Xbox, it seems so half-hearted and so just cheap. So don't do that with them anymore. And of course, now thanks to Ecstasies, we know that they're going to have a partners preview happening at some point this month. Folks, Xbox just keeps hitting, right? Forza Horizon, #1 almost every place in the world for it going to PlayStation. Everyone is talking about, and we bring this right back to Avowed. The word of mouth for Avowed has been freaking phenomenal. Everybody is super stoked to play it. People are posting their different builds. I know somebody in the chat literally said that they're doing a two-handed mage build, which is freaking awesome. I mean, like I said, we're going to get into another question, because as great as the numbers are, I do have some criticism for it. I do. One, and Imam Burns made a mention of this in the chat, they got to add a new game plus. That is what I'm waiting on. I don't want to start from the beginning. I want to play on the hardest level with what I have, and I want to expand, what I find later on. I want to, try some different builds, but I don't want to start from scratch. That's one criticism. The other thing they're going to eventually have to do, and they did it with the Outer Worlds, is they raised the level from 30 to 60. I'd like to see that happen, because I really want to get the 1,000 out of 1,000 achievements, and a lot of that requires doing some things that, you have to level up your party. I can't seem to do it any further than I've already done it, right? So I've already beaten the game. But I saw a lot of people in the chat here, and I'm going to go find you in a second once I hand the mic over to you so we can give them a shout out. But and here's the question, folks. This is for the chat, and this is for you, Fuzzy. Does the success of Avowed warrant a fast-tracked DLC path? Because when they asked the art director, the games director about it, Katie Patel, she said that they didn't have plans for it, right? This is something she said. I think the success of this game, at least in my opinion, warrants, hey, people are loving this. People are beating it. People want to play through it again. Maybe they could freaking add a DLC to it that wasn't originally in the cards. Or maybe there was a DLC in the cards and somehow it got cut for time. I don't know, but it's possible. Do you think there's going to be a change in direction because of the success to potentially make some more money? Obviously, that's what gaming is all about. And maybe, just maybe, before they greenlight Avowed 2, which I think has already been greenlit, get us a DLC. Fuzzy, what are your thoughts on that, man?
It's a good question. Like, I almost think that they probably, since kind of like what you said with the green light for a sequel or something along those lines, I think that's a given at this point. But as far as DLC, I don't know if they do an expansion or if they wind up doing something where more along the lines of like what you requested, like a new games plus. Like I think we could see them adding a couple more things, quality of life, fixes or add-ons, maybe a new game plus, and a way to, fast track some of the leveling and things along those lines. But I don't know if they do a DLC. Like I think now I'm early in the map, so I know there's quite a bit of area that I need to explore and stuff like that. But I would hope that they would have something DLC related in the works, or that they could, spin something up. Like maybe there was another island or something along those lines. But something along the lines of what we saw for Outer Worlds when they did their DLC for additional locations and stuff, and more of a story tied to those locations. I could definitely see them doing that, but I don't know. I feel they're probably at this point, from some of the criticisms and things that they would like to improve in like a sequel, I think they'll fast track that to the sequel to get that up and going, where maybe we see it in 3 years or 5 years or something like that. I think that's probably the more likely route, other than,
God.
like you said, the new game plus and stuff.
I hope you don't got to wait 5 years for the next one. I'm going to be honest with you, because look, I know we want them to make a Fallout. I know we want them to continue on the Outer Worlds. Again, they're working on something else that's not the two that are already, well, obviously the Outer Worlds the second half of the year. So it's not the Outer Worlds, it's not Avowed or Avowed 2. It's something else. And we all know what it is. It's going to be Fallout, I think. That's just my hot take. Shout out to Roland Dex. I don't know why in the freaking world I said Carrie instead of I said Katie instead of Carrie. It's Carrie Patel. I don't know why Carrie popped out of my mouth. I don't know what I was thinking, but thanks for the correction, brother. I super appreciate it. I mean, let's say, and the Ballantyne is like, nah, bring us Fallout, New Vegas 2. I don't. Well, listen, the original writer, we talked about this last week, came back after 14 years. He did throw it out there that they're not doing a Fallout New Vegas 2, but he didn't say they weren't doing a Fallout. Now, I did a whole video about Fallout New York. It's because I'm in New York and I want it here. Sorry, folks, if I then pick your state, but I think it's time. Reggie Mobile 9 says yes, indeed. Yeah, I listen. I think that this game has surprised a lot of people. I mean, even the most stout haters of Xbox were playing this game and enjoying it, because it's a lot. There's a lot here to enjoy. I know somebody in the chat. Let me see if I can find it. Said the Bears keep beating him up. You're not the only one. Poor Crispy Bomb. I don't know if he's gotten past that goddamn bear yet, but man, he's gonna have nightmares. I'm saying it right now. So E Rank says I prefer no DLC and start working on the sequel. That's a great point, E Ranks. Man, I don't know. It's I put it this way. It's so good of a game that it's a game that I want to start from scratch. But I want to start from scratch with my stuff. I want the new game plus. I think they're working on it. It's not there yet. The game has been updated, I think, 3 times so far, and they added a bunch of fixes. The fix that never came from me were 2 of the poster boards. That when you kill a wanted person or a thing, they drop something. It's usually glowing red, so you can easily find. They just never appeared for me, and I've been going back. And if you see it on the map, and it's like, oh, go here to collect, this thing from the dead whatever, and it's just not there. So I'm not going to get that achievement until I do the new game plus, and that's what I'm waiting for. Which again, I will. This is just a small piece of advice, folks. If you're doing a wanted poster mission, right before you get to that, whatever it is, save it. Because it's happened to me where, again, it's a glitch. I've killed them, and I wound up having to kill them 2 or 3 times. Now, they have fixed it, because that didn't happen later on in the other biomes. But in early on, you would kill them. They were supposed to drop something, so you can collect it and say, hey, listen, yeah, I got his tooth, or I got his tongue, I got his tail, whatever. And it didn't drop. So I was like, you know what? Let me reload it, kill him again. And I got what I needed. So word of advice. And again, I don't know if it's fixed. It was fixed for me, but before you do any of the wanted poster stuff, save right before you go fight them. Because if it turns out they don't drop what you need, you can just reload your save.